Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Online Wine Tasting Club. I'm Alex, and
I was gonna take this off before you start, wasn't I? I've been getting in the mood for a little bit of a Australian wine.
Oh dear. Okay, well, do you know what? We're going to try
Let's-
not
let's-
to do too many, having been
let's bin
mildly
that.
criticised for, and during a previous Australian tasting for some apparently accents which were poor accents. So anyway, good evening. Hope you're all well, and it's lovely to see you all. Welcome to another fun-filled tasting as we go around Australia virtually.
Absolutely. So I might have mentioned I like Australia many a time, and we've done many Australian tastings. However, I would have thought this would have been my piece de resistance. It's like, Jamie, go pick the wines, make it nice, make it happy. But older Taylor here decided he wanted to get involved.
Yep.
So we kind of set ourselves a challenge, a plan. I wouldn't say we set ourselves a plan because that's not how we do things around here.
Planning is a little of an overstatement, yes.
But there was the Wine New Zealand, Wine Australia tasting in London in January, and we thought, why don't we get down there, see what the world has to offer, and pick some wines out? And
let's like we did with the Spanish tasting, let's make it a little bit hard for ourselves, and we instantly banned Shiraz, because while we love Shiraz, there's some fantastic examples of Shiraz out there in the world. I have to say, it's one of the things we always just associate with Aussie wines, and so we thought maybe let's go and have a bit more of an explore. So if we ban ourselves from putting any Shiraz into this, then we can have a bit more of an interesting exploration. So that's going to be good fun. But we're starting with something that's very, very different.
well, should I get the wine in the glass?
Let's get the wine in the glass.
I'll do this, and you can introduce the lovely people in the world to Slido. That's a great idea.
Okay, so for those of us who have not seen this before, we have this thing called Slido, where you can enter your tasting notes. So all you have to do is to either point your camera at that QR code and with another suitable device, or go to slido.com with that 349652 code on it, or there's another shortcut where we can go to TOWTC.co.uk/taste. We've got lots of ways.
So many ways. So
whatever tasting notes you put into here, the most popular ones will appear on that screen. We will go to it when regular occasion.
What I will say before we get too deep and meaningful into this, if you do have two glasses, I think I put it on the brochure, but if I didn't, if you've got two glasses, that would be great, because what we're going to try and do is we're going to do the wines in order, but we are going to do wine 2 and 3 side by side, and then 4 and 5 side by side. So I picked a wine for number 1 because I thought I just love the vineyard, thought I'd do something a little bit different. Then for whites, we went with what we thought was reminded us of Australia.
Yes.
And then for reds, we just thought we'd go and pick something that we thought was cool, a little bit different. Somehow we both picked Grenache, but we've got a bit of
there is a bit of a story there, isn't there? Yes, definitely a Grenache
off. He may or may have not wanted a GSM blend, but the S in GSM
stands rule it out.
Yes, yep. And he's like, but it's Syrah. No, we're not playing no Syrahs.
No.
Syrah, indeed.
But yeah, get wine one into your glass. And we had an interesting debate earlier. It was like, how the heck do you pronounce the name of this grape? It is a Portuguese word, obviously Verdelho, and except, of course, in Australia, it's just pronounced Verdelho. So I think we're going to go with that.
He's on the accents already.
I'm on the accents already. So, but what an unusual thing. This comes from Madeira, doesn't it, originally?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you look at Madeira, you start your dry style is Cercio, you then got Verdelho, which is that one above, but still a dry style before you get to the Boal and the Malmsey. But this is very, very aromatic, and you can feel that it's got Spanish, Portuguese,
heritage in it.
Iberian Peninsula heritage. It's got lightness, it's got floral. For those who were with us last month, that first Spanish white we did, that Godeo, it's got that
was really fun
feel about it. But this is from the Hunter Valley, which is some of the oldest vines in all of Australia, and from Tyrrell's, who is one of the oldest wineries in the Hunter Valley. Started in 1863. First vintage was 1864, and this is their what's called their old winery wine. So this is kind of some of the first plant. It's not original plantings from 1800s, because you change grapes and you move them, but that vineyard has been there for a long time. Hunter Valley is famous for Semillon. Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon. That's what it makes. The Semillon, when you talk about something that comes from somewhere and can't be anyone else, that's what Hunter Valley does.
Shall I put up a map so we can show exactly whereabouts in Australia we are talking about?
You can. So we go to Sydney and we go around the corner.
Yeah.
So Hunter's quite good. When we talk about wine and wine tourism, it's a really good area from Sydney. It's about 45 minutes away. So you can go and do a day trip out to the Hunter and taste some really good wine. If you're stopping off in Australia in the city, it's a quite an accessible wine area for a major city. You go to a lot of places and the wine areas aren't where the tourist areas are.
No.
So you can be an absolute wine geek and go on a wine tour, and that's great. But the rest of the family's like, why are we here? We've seen a barrel room, we've seen a grapevine.
Well, especially when you're there with kids, that never quite.
Hunter Valley is fantastic for that little kind of just nip around the corner. To be fair, you've nipped a long way to then just nip around the corner. But
yes, true. But I guess for the locals, it's a great place. But they are, to be fair, surrounded by so many amazing choices. I actually did pop in there when I was over there. We flew into Melbourne, so we did a few of the things around there. But then we went on a slightly strange route right through the outback because I just couldn't miss going through the outback and pretending I was Crocodile Dundee. And then we arrived in Sydney and then drove up the coast towards Brisbane. And so one of our stopping points was in the Hunter Valley. It was absolutely beautiful, really lovely place, and had some very memorable food and wine and kangaroo experiences.
Yeah, it was my.
This is great though.
So when I went there, we flew into Sydney and we did some wine tasting in Sydney. But Hunter was the first Australian vineyard area I went to. And it's like nowhere else. There's you can say that a lot about a lot of places, but the wine styles there, you can't go. It's kind of like this. You can go to other places. Go, it's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, so it's a bit like Australia's Burgundy, or do you know what I mean? You can have those things. But some of the best and I put on here oysters, and with young Semillon and with this they'll take the oysters, they'll shut the oysters, and they'll just pour the wine on it. So instead of like a bit of lemon juice or a like mignonette or something like that, just a bit of Verdelho, bit of young Semillon, oyster down. It's fantastic. It's really, really good.
Doesn't sound horrible, to be fair, at all. But it's funny because this is a good one to talk about sort of sweetness versus fruitiness, because some of the tasting notes coming are really very ripe fruits like your pineapples, your melons, peach, and also into that honey kind of area. But there's also a lot of textural things and some herbaceous notes going on. So yeah, really really cool wine. But does this have any sweetness in it, or is it just the sensation?
I think it's bone dry. I don't have a tech number, but
shall we stick our tongues in?
A small amount.
A small amount.
That's helpful.
That's very helpful indeed.
So maybe
3-4
grams.
Yeah. So yeah, that's when we're talking about the actual sweetness, we talk about just how many grams per liter of wine, how many grams of sugar is in that. And so, for example, your sort of off dry kind of
starting
blue
about
nunny,
12 to 15.
Yeah,
you're kind of there. Some of your Cabernet Rieslings are 35, 40, and then dessert wines we're pushing 100.
Yeah, exactly.
But you need to be really for perceivable.
You see, you're it's 2.5 hours from Sydney, so you've compressed it in your mind because you've just travelled all the way out to the
Maybe it was because I thought it was close.
This is the problem with Australia. When you look at it on a map, you look and you think this is so super. Oh, that's just up the road, but
maybe where it's 14 years ago, less traffic.
Less traffic, yeah, exactly, yeah. Just a bit of a speedy driver, and in a company of lots of people who've been into wine tasting. But it's.
I think it was the felt that it was the equivalent. I could do a day trip there.
A day trip, yeah. But that was certainly, We were bimbling up the coast, stopping everywhere, so it was a bit of probably longer than that for us. But it's a cracking region, and you're close to some absolutely beautiful beaches on that east coast there. I think you're not too far from Newcastle, are you, if I remember right, which was a bit of a surprise, and ran into Spuggy or whatever from Bite a Grove. I'm going to stop that now. Promising not to do too many bad Australian accents, go into Geordie, mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, why? We're doing an Australian tasting. Why did you go for a Portuguese grape then? Was it just to do something different?
I think there's. I think it's the preconceived notions of Australia. And I think most people on this tasting understand that Australia is a big place, and it's like Australia, you could slap it over the top of the US, you could slap it over the top of Europe,
Yeah.
and it's that same kind of landmass. And I think we go there's Shiraz and there's Chardonnay, and getting awareness of other things. We could do regional Chardonnays from across Australia, yeah, and you could taste different things from Margaret River, from Yarra, from Mornington. They're all vastly different. We could do that. But I just thought this was kind of cool to show something that's a little bit different. You go down to McLaren Vale and you've got people like Coriol who are making all these Italian, they're doing Sagrantinos and stuff like that. So, I think it was important, to showcase what
There's
else
more
happens.
than the standard.
We can go, you can go bargain basement Aussie, the little critter wines. You can go absolutely top bins, amazing Australian. But a lot of them, the super premiums, are led by Chardonnay, by Shiraz, by Cabernet Sauvignon. And I think the whole point of the online wine tasting club is I don't know how many people have been wandering around drinking Hunter Valley Semillon. And by looking at the tasting notes, it seems to be an interesting wine. The couple of comments, people seem to be enjoying it.
Pop the comments if you're enjoying this, or even if you're not. If it's not the style, let us know what kind of things.
But I just think that the whole point of this club is it allows me to be a geek and go drink this, drink this, and everyone does. It's not like I go to a dinner party and go, "Do you want to try this?" It's too late. They've bought it. They've got it at home. They have to try it.
I've got to go back to that map because this is the thing. When you look at these distances, and going up towards Brisbane, I mean, it took us a few days, and we really had to push it to go for it there because we started off bimmling along and thought, actually, we're not going to make this flight if we keep going up the coast at this rate because when you to go to Brisbane, that's like practically the whole length of Poland there, isn't it? Or France.
But I think that map, while you got that map up, I think that's quite interesting as well, because if we skewed it a little bit and made it a bit square, if you go from Brisbane and draw straight across, above that line, there's not much wine grown.
No.
And it's kind of, if we skewed it round, and obviously it's upside down because it's the other way around, we're not getting much wine in the very north of England, or England in general. We're getting there, but it's not easy to grow in England. There's not a lot of wine in Finland, in Norway, when you look at that.
No, there is some, but
But you look at that map, we can showcase that, Australia, you've only about half of it you can grow any wine in.
So we got to Finn's absolutely agreeing with the rock oysters on a half shell, dash of lemon, optional Tabasco. I certainly love a little bit of spice. I think
you're
there's some great acidity.
Keep the Tabascos far away from your oysters.
I love a bit of Tabasco on my oysters. I'm sorry, I really do. I like a bit of sort of shallot, red wine vinegar kind of thing as well. That's pretty nice. But this is definitely setting the bar pretty high. It's really interesting.
I've got good news and bad news for you for setting the bar really high. I'm very glad I've set the bar really high, but I also managed to buy and pack every last drop of Verdelho in the country.
Yes, we don't.
So if you want some, let me know. There's apparently more being imported in May, and I can get it to you for the summer sunshine. Yeah. But usually we're like, "Oh, buy this," and someone can buy it. This is done, and there's no more. So
this is the crazy thing, when we're doing wine tastings for a good number of people, as we do, we quite often have to be very careful with when we're trying to buy the wines. We'll go, "That's brilliant, and we have that one, please." And they go, "Well, we've got 12 bottles of it left." And like, that's not enough for us. So but a great start to the evening.
Should we have a quick last look at the tasting notes?
I think so. Let's pull those up. So it's all split into these quite a lot of sort of primary, which is the fruit-based things that come from the grape itself. We've got citrus fruits like limes. We've got herbs, lemongrass. I think I saw thyme there, didn't I? Elderflower. But then there's some things that are perhaps more into the more winemaking side. Just a bit of age on it, wasn't there? Oh, no, it's not at all. What's one that's got a bit of age? Not this one.
Not this one.
No. So it must have been worked quite hard to give it a bit of that texture that you see. But some mineral things coming into it. Really very classy, well-made wine. And not what I would call a classic Australian sort of flavour profile.
Right, before we pour these, because we didn't discuss this before the show, are we announcing whose is whose to start with? Or
I think we've got to, haven't we?
Why? Because you've not done enough research on mine.
No, it's not that. No.
Oh, you want to give people an advantage?
Also, okay, I did taste yours, and it was very good.
Before we know whose is whose, given a blind taste. If you're going to vote for Alex, put that in the chat. And if you're going to vote for me, put that in the chat.
So, yes, in terms of
Okay.
yes, and May shopping is an excellent plan for if you like some of that. I think it's a really fun wine. So
Wine.
yeah, we have got 2 glasses here.
I'll put wine 2 in your left glass for you.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And the task was quite simple because we were sat there wondering around. It was like, how do we split this? And we were like, what do we would like to present something that represents modern Australian winemaking, because let's be honest, there was a bit of a bad name for it, wasn't there? Because we were just getting the cheap stuff in our country.
Well, you know, between Australia and California is what started the ABC movement, the anything but Chardonnay, wasn't it? And it was.
But I think it's right to also
cheap bad fruit masked with mass-produced oak.
I think what we should remember that there's perhaps for the people who are who weren't around, we were used to just drinking European wines, weren't we, at the time in this country? And suddenly in came this wine that was.
So you're showing your age. At that age, I was drinking VK, WKD. I was nowhere near a bottle of claret. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But suddenly there were these winemakers who were going, what do people actually want to drink? And they said, well, I'd like it to taste of fruit with a little bit of vanilla on my whites, so crisp, citrusy fruits, maybe some ripe fruit in there, a little bit of some good acidity, some nice gentle oak flavors. That's kind of what I want. And they were suddenly producing these wines competently at sort of £5 a bottle, when or the equivalent sort of inflation adjusted, and that was a remarkable
27 pence then.
A remarkable step forwards from exactly. Inflation has been a bit brutal. It was remarkably better than having the sort of the unknown situation where you'd order a bottle of European wine and it could be stunning or it could be atrocious. It was consistent, it was well made, it was high quality, and it was at a good price point. And it was that was a brilliant start, and that's what led to the massive success of the Australian wine industry. They were doing it really well. The problem is that when you're in that sort of race to the bottom, there comes, how cheap can I make it and still have it okay?
Yeah, what is passable?
Okay, and £1 cheaper will almost always sell in the supermarket better than really good but £1 more expensive, and that's a depressing thing if you haven't got that sort of heritage and brand name behind it. And so people started cutting corners. And they started using things like
liquid smoke,
yeah,
oak chip sawdust.
Yes, basically literally putting sawdust into the wine rather than putting it into a barrel, because handling things in barrels is really hard work and expensive because they're tiny compared to a 10,000 litre tank. So the stuff in Australia was done on the scale just got bigger and bigger, and these massive automated vehicles going through the vineyards, picking up whatever the heck they could and dumping it all into a tank, like snakes, bicycles, koala bears, everything going in there. So it wasn't the recipe to making brilliant. So I decided, and
is that why they had the rule that it can be 85% Chardonnay and 15% anything else? Yes, it didn't even have to be a grape.
Yeah.
Do we want to? I know do you want to get the tasting notes?
The tasting notes.
So
quite right. Yeah.
So we've got wine 2 coming up.
Yep.
Which is a Chardonnay, and then wine 3 will be a white blend. So have a little bit in each glass. We'll talk through wine 2 mainly first, then we'll go on to wine 3. But keep them to compare, because then we'll have a vote as to which one you think is your favorite, who picked better, whatever you like, whichever you know.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because for me, when I think of Australian white wines, you have to go for Chardonnay. You absolutely have to, because they became so good at doing it.
Well, 50% of us absolutely had to go for Chardonnay.
Agreed with that statement. And I think what I loved about this wine is that it was unapologetically Australian style. It was big, it was rich, it was delicious, it was turned up, not quite necessarily to some of the Napa scales on Chardonnay, but it did use oak, but it didn't do it in that cheap, horrible way. This one, they're mixing it. It was about 28% on brand new small oak barrels. Another sort of hot quarter going into 1 year, so they've been used only twice now, and then the rest into older French barrels. That's proper, hardcore, really good winemaking, but it's not just going, let's stick it all in the biggest, richest, newest oak barrels we can to overload you with that buttery kind of.
And I think that there was
hit.
that two things with Chardonnay, wasn't there, in the 90s? There was
so
either
good.
the absolute cheap and cheerful and it was bad oak to hide bad fruit. And then there was the other end that was mega expensive oak, because if you use mega expensive oak, you're using the best, and therefore the best is the most expensive. So it's the most expensive, best wine. Mentality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's a balance to be had. And I absolutely love oak on Chardonnays. I like it. And I know some people, I really hate. But I think a lot of people don't realise when oak comes in. You have something from, we go, Chablis is sometimes, well, mainly on oak. But the rest of Burgundy, you go into Macon, there's oak there. It's, but it's a different style of oak. So oak done well is a really important part of winemaking, not only in white wines and red wines. And it is. It's there's so many different winemaking techniques. There's so many different things. So oak isn't a winemaking, it's not a yes no, it's not black or white, it's not oak or no oak. There's some oak. Is it new oak? Is it staves? Is it
what toast is the do you know what, I was listening to a podcast just on barrel making, which is the kind of fun thing I like to do on the way to work in the mornings, and it was absolutely fascinating. I mean, we could talk about barrels all day long like this guy did. We won't, but I think if you've been in it for a while, that you can choose a different kind of material. It's generally either French oak or American oak. Slightly different flavor profiles to that, and then they do this thing called toasting it, which is where you're basically lighting a fire inside the barrel where it doesn't have a top or bottom on it. There's a big sort of I can't remember what the word for it is, but they're almost like a sort of a metal stove that's containing wood in there that they're burning, and you either toast it very lightly, like just as if we're talking about a piece of bread in your toaster, or you go all the way through to
toast.
Like toast, in fact, yes.
Hence why it's called.
Hence
See
why
what
it's called
they've
toast.
done there.
But then you start getting into the whole question of the seasoning of this oak. How is it left before
salt,
pepper, and a lot of sitting in the cooper's yard for a long time in very carefully stacked things that allow airflow to go through it for a year or longer. And then with this toasting process, you've got the three different forms of heat that come from it. Effectively, you've got the radiation that comes out from the metal. You've got the actual sort of the convection of the hot air that's going around, and then you've got the effect of the flames itself, which then do more to really, really heat up that very utmost layer. But the deeper that sort of toasting goes into it, the more of those tannins you're sort of developing in the barrel, and that all really affects the flavor. It's not a surprise it affects the flavor, but it's why if you put everything into brand new, newly toasted oak barrels, it's a bit overwhelming, or it can be a bit overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. But
this is not. This is
exactly the same. It's you look. My kids. I've got one kid who, if you walk a piece of toast past the microwave, it's too toasted, and the other one, if it's not incinerated, it's not crispy enough. And it's exactly the same. You do that, and you put that, whatever, your butter or your jam on top of that. That butter or jam's flavour is directly impacted to how toasted that piece of bread is.
Quite right, yeah. No, we've got some fans.
There's definitely some oak in this one.
There's some oak in this.
If we said there's no oak here,
we still have one person who is very much in the camp of anything but Chardonnay, and that's absolutely fine. If this is not the style to convert you, I wouldn't be surprised. It's still got that, and it could trigger you if you've got memories of those horrible old ones. But lots of people saying Werther's originals, and I think that's absolutely fair. What a wonderful kind of childhood thing to grip onto. But some things like toasted hazelnuts, lemon zest, minerality. There's so much going on with this. It's an absolutely cracking wine. And I think it gets a bit of it from having some of that wine initially fermented in the oak as well, but again, not too much. It's just balanced, and that's not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Australian winemaking. They're quite outgoing,
but a lot of the big Australian Chardonnays come from warmer places. They come from McLaren, they come from Adelaide, they come from Barossa, they come from Margaret River,
and Tasmania, where I think the best Aussie Chardonnays.
But to be fair, I think Tasmania sits with it. Tasmania sits in the cool, very cool climate, so you're able to get that richness. So right here we're in.
That's the wrong one. Sorry, what's that?
We're in the Eden Valley.
Yeah. So which is the small small pink one up there, just there.
Absolutely. So you've got the super zone there, which is, you know, you've got Adelaide, you've got McLaren, you've got Clare, you've got Eden. But once again, you know, you bring that up on the big map and compare. That is a massive, massive area. It looks, because of all the space around it, it looks like, oh, it is a little strip of wineries.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you take that, you know, you're pushing towards, you know, across to South Australia, you're out of New South Wales when you get over there. But you've got what's the super zone down there. And you name it, it grows there. You know, Eden, where the Chardonnay's from, the Heggies, you know, that they make phenomenal Riesling up there because you've got these pockets. And what's really interesting, even these regions, because they're relatively large within these regions, but I think sometimes when we talk about New World wines, we blanket statement. We go, and I remember getting shouted out by a South African winemaker because I'm like, oh, Loire's got its own thing of Sauvignon Blanc, and Marlborough's got its own thing, and you know, South Africa has it. What do you mean South Africa has its own thing? There's Elgin, there's Stellenbosch, and I think that's the thing. Even within those regions, you know, we talk about France, we can get all pernickety about which field the grape was grown in, let alone go, this is French red wine.
Quite right.
And I think,
especially when you've got such a mismatch of soils going on and different aspect ratios and altitudes. This is at 500 meters above sea level, so we're already going quite a long way up from some of those other Adelaide areas. So, but I think that the winemaker Mark van Helderen, who is actually originally South African, now married an Australian lady and moved over. He gave a great quote about this one. He says, "Gone are the days of the 1980s Chardonnays, complete with their shoulder pads and permed hair." Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I for me, that is it. This is crafted. It knows where it's coming from. It's not trying to pretend to be anything else. To me, that says Australia in a glass. You pick that up, you drink it, you go, that's A, delicious, and B, Australia.
And I think that's great. And I think there's more and more New World regions that are going after their own thing. They used to be 15, 20 years ago. It's like, I want to be like, pick famous old world area. I want to be like Bordeaux. I want to be like Chablis. I want to be like Barolo. But, you know, I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago. I was at a Vas Felix Australian tasting from Margaret River. And I remember meeting their winemaker a long time ago. And her comment was, we were comparing her wine to go, oh, well, it's got this kind of oomph of Napa, this little feeling of Burgundy.
Yeah.
And what she turned around and said is, what I want in 15, 20 years' time is for someone to pick up my glass of wine and go, that's Margaret River.
Yeah.
And I really think Australia is starting to get that regionality, that elegance, that sense of place, that it's, and you know what, there is the big Jamie Shiraz, the Molly Dukas of the world that come and punch you in the face. But that's exactly what that is. And the people who love that, it's phenomenal wine.
Quite right.
Phenomenal
quite right.
wine.
Yeah. And there's a place
but
for it.
There's becoming a time and a place and a sense for all the different styles, depending on that. And it's not just Australian Chardonnay. It's absolutely not. And I think the showcase is that hopefully for a lot of people who have gone,
as far away
I'm
from
not
your
Aussie this, I'm there, and you know, it might not be your favorite thing. It might be your favorite thing,
yeah.
but if it's not, hopefully you're pleasantly surprised that it's different to what you might have expected.
So Finn suggested with the Chardonnay some red snapper with a creamy sauce and asparagus, which sounds absolutely delicious. Do you know what I'd eat with this? I'm gonna have to look at yabbies. I'd eat yabbies. Does anyone know what a yabby is? Because it's Australian. And sure enough, they have a lake on the site here.
A yabby lake.
A yabby lake full of yabbies. And so I would say some yabbies would be absolutely delicious with this, grilled over a barbecue, of course. So yes.
Did you get a picture of a yabby?
I should get a picture of a yabby. But I tell you what, I'll move the tasting notes.
Let's move the tasting on to 3 because people have finished their Chardonnay while you're yabbying
on.
See what I did there?
That's very good.
It's horrible. So, right. So, young Taylor thought that Chardonnay was quintessentially Australian. So I decided the Rhone Valley was quintessentially Australian. So this is Turkey Flat, and we're in the Barossa. It's a Marsanne Viognier Roussanne blend. And my reason for doing this was going away from there being so much oak on Australian Chardonnay. And we go, it's all too oaky, it's all too oaky, it's all too oaky. But Marsanne and Roussanne and the Southern Rhone can give you the feeling of Chardonnay
Yes, they
without
can,
being Chardonnay. You've got the richness, and you're getting the richness from the fruits, the malolactic, the texture, without having to.
I'm going to put you off with my yabbies again.
I know,
Yeah.
too much yabby, without having to have the oak on it. So you can get the texture and the flavour. You know, the Marsanne and the Roussanne give the body and the texture. The Viognier gives this little floral highlight. And I think this is really, really cool. So this is from Torunda, Barossa Valley. And, Barossa makes good Cab, good Shiraz. But there's nice little pockets, which are near lakes and rivers where you get that moderating climate that it doesn't get to 35, 40 degrees, where you're not getting 16, 70% wines. This is still quite high alcohol wise, I think.
That is not bad at all.
Double
12,
check.
it's 12 and a half, I think, isn't it? Oh,
He double checks his tasting note, 12 and a half. So yeah, so around there you're getting 14, 15% reds, but still 12 and a half here. So,
So they picked early. But that's a cracking wine, a really, really good wine. And not again what I would have necessarily gone for. Is it classic Australia? No, but I get your angle in it. It's nice. It's certainly very stylish winemaking.
There's another one, a little bit of oak in here, but they're using puncheons here, so it's all big. Wet dog. Get your wet dog out of my tasting notes. You're obviously sitting too close to a wet dog.
I didn't say that about my Chardonnay though. I hate some dread. But I certainly, when we went over to this, but both of us were really surprised at how good this wine was, and it definitely left a mark. So I get it. It's really a stylistic preference thing, isn't it? So, but fourth generation winemakers from the same family. Otherwise, there wouldn't be generations, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. But I think these guys they just make solid wines across the board. They do Turkey Flat. They make a lot of classic styles. They make some big Shiraz, but they're messing around with some Mataro. They make dessert wines, all kind of cool things. Lots of fun stuff there. But I think what's been really interesting with the first three wines, either we've got loads of cool people on tonight, which we always have loads of cool people on, but we've got so many tasting notes. The tasting notes are so big and bold and interesting,
really good,
which is really fantastic.
Great to see. What would you eat with this? Because I mean, you put down hard cheese and roast chicken on there, but
so there we are. I make my decisions before the tasting pack goes out and say this is what I'd eat with while you make a decision.
Oh, I like the fact you said salmon and asparagus with my one. So there you go.
Well,
it should have been red snapper.
To be fair, I just check it. I just wait for Finn now. I don't have to do any work. I get people to put the tasting notes in so I can talk about it, and I get Finn to do the food pairing, and I just hear and read off the screen. It's like a teleprompter. It's phenomenal.
So I did manage to leave a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the Chardonnay now. You're absolutely right. It's Chardonnay, but that's just Chardonnay, and that's so. Yeah, it gives you a lot of those same qualities, doesn't it?
And I think this is, if you like Chardonnay, want to try something different, and I think this is, you can go, it's. I always think you can move people one step, and I think this is Chardonnay to White Rhone is a fairly easy step. But you think about where it is in the world, where it's originally from. You go Burgundy, you follow Burgundy down, and then your next stop is the Rhone Valley anyway.
Yeah, true.
You're not millions of miles away.
It's funny because I'm,
that wet dog's getting bigger. It's like a wet Rottweiler. It was a Chihuahua to start with, and that's a.
Yeah, it's because you looked miffed about it, so everyone's going to keep putting wet dog in just to wind him up. I haven't seen what he's done about the judging these wines and which one wins. I dread to.
Oh no, I've actually been normal.
Have you been sensible?
I've actually given people the option to vote for you.
He told me that he'd given the choice of Jamie, still Jamie, or not Alex, and that was. But yes, good. I'm glad to see that. But yeah, it's a really interesting comparison, these two next to each other, and very different to when we taste them individually. Isn't it?
And I think it's what's important. As much as me and Taylor like to have a bit of playful banter, it's not about one of these being good or one of these being bad. I think they're both spectacularly well-made wines. They are both different. They're both from their own regions. They've both got their own reasons for being. Struth.
Oh, dear.
So, you know, when you're voting for it, obviously you're voting to keep me happy and me not storm off and leave the tasting.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you know, it's going to be a personal preference. And I also think on any given Sunday, there's going to be a day that you want to drink that, and there's going to be a day that you want to drink that.
Hold on, I think I heard a knock at the doorbell downstairs. What's that on the Ring camera? Oh no, it's a really, really hench kangaroos come along to sort us out for suggesting New Zealand oysters. Oh, sorry, mussels with it. Yeah, watch out, Finn. Those are quite scary. Those big male kangaroos, aren't they?
They are. They do like they.
Is that a boomer?
I don't know.
There's an Australian in the chat. Is a boomer a big male Australian? Male kangaroo. I'm sure we'll get an answer to that at some point. I've put you off your stride there. Sorry.
I've got massive male kangaroos on the brain now.
Okay.
They will fight you. They go out and drown dogs. They're not nice things.
No, they are quite well.
They will, from what I heard, they will lure like vineyard dogs down to the watering hole and literally get up on their back legs and hold them under.
My word.
Yeah.
It's funny because they always show, like, if you go onto, I think it's Heggie's website. I don't know if I've got it here, but one of the photos they had is of their vineyard complete with a roux in the middle of it. And yet, of course, you don't really want that if they're going through and picking your grapes and things. They're basically like Australian badgers, aren't they?
Yes. But
in a way.
I think it might have been, well, I can't remember where I was in Australia, maybe in Victoria. And it must have been the most Australian line I'd ever heard. I got someone just from, we're having a...
You're in the Shandong winery, their project over in...
No, it wasn't.
I thought it was what you said. Okay.
But anyway, I'm there, and we finished the wine tasting for the day. Everyone sat around on the terrace having a beer and just hear this yell, crikey! And I'm not even going to do the accent because it's not going to work. Crikey, everyone get in the ute. There's roux in the vineyard. I'm like, that is all the Australian words at once.
To go and
get the because they're horrible pests.
It's impressive, Alan. That's definitely impressive. There is Jamie was mentioning Yabby Lake from Mornington.
They're absolutely Yabby Lake.
Right, shall we stop beating around the bush?
Okay, all right, no.
Okay, hold on. Let's pull this up.
No. People are putting dogs in there now just to upset.
They're eating the dogs.
Yeah.
They're eating the cats.
Oh, we're not going there.
Right.
Yeah, fine. You know what? As long as everyone else thinks it's funny, it's horrific.
There we go. Male kangaroos, boomers. The name of the men's basketball team. That's brilliant. Thank you. I like that. Excellent.
To be fair, I love this group because it doesn't even need to be about wine. There is someone. This is like
they've got a lot of expertise.
This is like the new level of the Yellow Pages, isn't it? It's like whatever you need. You know, if I ask for a good local plumber, well, that'd be you actually with your heating problems.
Yeah,
but we've got someone for everything. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Shall we move on to the
vote?
The votes. Let's have a vote.
Yes,
so everybody gets your pens. I'm going to hide this just for a moment if I can work out how to do that. How do I do that? Like that. They've moved everything around just to make everything nice. So while you're all voting for that, where are we going to next? We're going to be talking.
Well, we might be going nowhere. This might be the end of the tasting. So we're going to give this another 30 seconds, and I'm going to decide if we're going to get to wine 4 or not.
All right, okay. But in the meantime, so Grenache. Why Grenache? We put a little bit about this into the thing.
I think, yeah. Like while people vote, people get pouring, but let's get the vote in before we start actually talking about the particular wines. Do you want some scissors?
No.
Oh, he's got skills. You don't need scissors.
Carnage.
Right, that's 4, yeah.
That is 4.
That's 4. This is 5. Lovely. So what's interesting is Shiraz has always been king of the castle for Australia. But it's another thing, and we're not going to have a half-hour conversation about climate change because that could be a whole thing. But due to climate change and people's drinking styles, Shiraz is getting riper and riper and riper, and heavier and heavier and heavier, and either sweeter or bigger. And people are finding it very, very hard to make a Shiraz that's not 16% and still being ripe. You can make a 12% Shiraz if you want, but it will have no flavour. It won't have the fruit ripeness. So there's a lot of experimentation, especially in South Australia, with other grapes. You're seeing a lot of Italian grapes being grown there.
Things that come from warm
Portuguese
places.
grapes. So Touriga's big there. Sagrantina's there. Coriol makes a Sangiovese. But we're also seeing a big growth in Durif, which is Petit Syrah, and Grenache. So we're seeing some of the other Rhone grapes, and we're seeing it in the Rhone Valley as well. Syrah is moving north slowly, and Grenache is becoming even more of the blends in. I saw that and I'm upset. My poker face is gone. And so Syrah's moving up, and Grenache is becoming a bigger component in Southern Rhone. And what we're seeing, that Grenache used to be Australia's biggest planted grape. It then fell out of fashion, and it's now coming back big time. And it's now more expensive to buy Grenache for a ton of grapes than it is Shiraz in a lot of Australia, especially in places like McLaren Vale and Watervale and Eden and Clare and those kind of places. It's becoming a premium grape. If anyone was with us, God, how long ago did we do it? We did a Grenache from Thistledown on a tasting a couple of years back, and I was talking to Giles Cook, the master of wine who makes that, and he was like, when we first started doing Grenache, people were throwing at me. No one wanted it. No one wanted to touch it. And all of a sudden, it suddenly become the most expensive grape in the region. So,
it's one they're all super excited by. And whenever we were talking to these winemakers, they got really excited about that. But yeah, I mean, I think I wrote into the brochure about how it's affecting the picking dates by, weeks and weeks earlier. You're having to pick the grapes in order to keep the acidity and to keep the sugars down. And then you have to do all sorts of other things to do with the careful management of the canopy. That's the leaves of the plants, and also the soil as well, just to try to basically cram less sugar into that and allow enough time for the flavors to develop properly. But
let's skip to the tasting notes so people can put their tasting notes in.
Is that what you want to do? I was just going to quickly say though that there's an Australian winemaker in Burgundy now, and his name is Mark Haysmer, I believe, and he's based in Gevrey-Chambertin, but I think his brand is brilliant. A Bogan in Burgundy, brilliant name. But he is also growing Syrah in Burgundy now. So the Syrah has moved up from the Rhone into Burgundy in
when I was
France.
in Alsace, there's experimental plantings of Syrah.
Yeah,
it's migrating north.
It's migrating. Everything's migrating north. The Portuguese variety is going to Bordeaux. But let's find out. It is. I think. Shall we put Mr. Smith out his misery? Sorry, mate. It looks like the Chardonnay was the winner on that one.
But I thought no one liked Chardonnay anymore.
Oh well, apparently. Anyway, that was a cracking wine, and of course, it's never quite that simple, is it? Because
5 minutes before we started this tasting, Taylor was like, "Your wine's going to smash mine."
Yeah, because it was funny. It was just each time you taste these things in isolation, they're so different to each other, and then suddenly side by side, it's like, oh yeah, actually, what? Anyway, bizarre, very bizarre. But let's move it on to wine number 4.
That's the one after 3.
That is indeed the case. So, Grenache. Right. So we're in the Clare Valley. So if I pull up that Adelaide map again, which is this one. Clare Valley is that northernmost green square there. So we're going a little bit up north from, and inland, obviously, from the more common, the more classic sort of ranges, and even further in than the Eden Valley. And Clare Valley is actually kind of 3 parallel valleys that sort of go up, and that gives you all sorts of weird and funny things going on. You get a lot of mist going on. There's so many microclimates. Sorry, pardon me. This was the ancient indigenous land of the Ngajuri people. I'm sorry if I've spelt that wrong. That is. Is that these guys? No, that's Jason Kiley. What's it? That's them. So these are the people who originally lived in there.
I'm glad you were going from indigenous people and you got that wrong and put up Jason and Kylie. That's
It's a tiny little thumbnail, you see.
good effort, sir. Here are the indigenous people of
Indigenous
Australia.
people of Australia.
Too many broken hearts
Quite right.
in the world.
Oh my word! Come on, do the
Cancelled.
locomotion with me. Right, let's. Yeah. Jesus. Sorry. Right. Yeah. So, Grenache. What I like about this one is that it is light, delicate, and zingy, crunchy fruit. Really interesting. It's so the opposite of a big Aussie Shiraz, isn't it? This one. This is just light, elegant, beautiful.
And
fruit.
what's interesting about Watervale? So Watervale is the sub-region of the Clare. So it's kind of in the south bit of the Clare Valley. I don't know why I do this. Like I've got a map in front of me that anyone knows where I'm pointing. This like hand thing needs to go away. It's like it's just here.
We really need like a pointer stick on this, but we can't do it.
But that is a bit like, when we talked about Eden for the Chardonnay, famous for its Riesling.
Yeah.
Because it was a pocket where it was cool enough, but enough daytime sunshine hours to get ripeness. And this is where you're now seeing red grapes that it's too hot when you're further south are coming into these what were traditionally very, 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 very cool climate areas, but are now more still cool climate, but not there. And you're getting enough sunshine and enough warmth during the day to get ripeness. And then you've got the cool evening. So you've got this lovely, I don't know, do we describe a diurnal shift as lovely? What a lovely diurnal shift you have there. So, you get this larger diurnal shift. So you get the cool evening. So you could get this lightness, this freshness, this acidity. And if you poured them both together and look at the color difference,
they're really different colors, aren't they?
It's phenomenal that the same grape from the same country, and not a million miles away, can look so different.
And quite often the color development's is a factor of the amount of sunshine it gets onto the skins of the grapes. And so perhaps even if it's a bit cooler, you're still getting a lot of sunshine. They're like exactly a Malbec.
Because you get that sunshine, and the grape tries to, the skin thickens, acting like almost like natural sunscreen to protect the flesh within it. So if you've got a lot of sunshine, even if it's not hot sunshine, it's the UV that will thicken up the skins.
And I think this is really delicate winemaking. Quite clearly, they are using French oak, but again, this is old French oak and it's big French oak. They're using puncheons, big barrels, and it's just really to let it sort of evolve. It's not flavoring it at that point. This is just a question of allowing the wine a bit of time and a tiny bit of oxygen just to come together and soften and make this beautifully rounded thing. But it's a really complex wine, and
I just want to know,
gently pressed in a basket, like.
And I'm sure everyone's come to it because we've talked about Grenache going away and coming back. That's the whole reason why it's called Prodigal, because it's the return of Grenache to the fore at the Killicanoon Winery. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do they press the bunch in 4? So with red winemaking, you've got lots of different choices of things to do, of course, and we don't have the full details of everything that they do on this one, unfortunately. I'm going to say they do leave a little bit of this whole cluster into the ferment. So generally speaking, what you'll do is you'll run the grapes through a crusher destemmer, which takes off the stems, which if they're not ripe enough, particularly if you picked them quite early to preserve freshness, you'll get these green sort of quite horribly tannic, bitter flavors from the stalks. You don't really want them in the ferment. But if you've got some which are a bit riper, maybe you can keep those with the berries whole and on their stalks, and it undergoes slightly different processes to dissolve it. And then, of course, you'll press it all out. But they're very carefully. They're saying it's gently basket pressed. How much of a push they put into it is really down to the winemaker sat there tasting it, going a bit harder. Nope, too tannic now. Stop it. So.
You love it when people ask about a bit of whole bunch.
Yeah, exactly. But yes,
it's of all the taste notes in the world, I'll pick something up and go black fruit, red fruit. I go very WSET. Actually,
there's
a little bit of whole bunch in there. A little bit of whole bunch.
I think there is a little bit of whole bunch in this. I do think so. Instant heartburn. Sounds funny but acidic. Excellent. But raspberry and chocolate. That sounds very pleasant. And summer puddings. Yeah, I get that for sure. it's really not overloaded with those oaky flavors at all. It's got it's not a brand new wine. It's had a couple of years of age on it, and it had 18 months in the barrels. So that's definitely led to a bit of that sort of tertiary note coming in. But
It's really well balanced. It's very fresh for 14% alcohol. It's not burny. It's not hot. It's well done. It's in the top 2 Grenaches in the tasting.
Pretty much by definition, yes. If it's not in the top 2, I've done something.
Well, I've done something very, very, very bad because this is good.
yeah, that's true. No, it's an excellent wine. And yeah, one of the things they obviously do is they've got a few different vineyards across the area, all with quite fun names, if I remember correctly. But they keep those separate, and that gives you some really fun things to blend together. So it is still a blend, even though it's Grenache, because you're blending a bit from that vineyard, potentially a bit from that part of that vineyard, and potentially, sometimes they go through the vineyards multiple times to pick different things, and grapes at different stages of ripeness, depending on all sorts of factors. There could be any number of reasons why they're going in and doing that. Well, one that's higher up than that bit, so we'll pick that bit at the bottom earlier, and then go back and do the cooler bits later.
Yeah, especially somewhere like Watervale, you're going to see that because of the slopes, and they'll do multiple passes, either out of choice, sometimes out of necessity. If there's rain coming through, they go and take what they can, and then they go back and get whatever's left over and make different wines.
But do we like it? I think that's a very interesting question. Just before we go on, and how does it compare to other Grenaches you've had? Because I think it's
especially the next one.
Well,
that's what really matters.
Let's gloss over the next one. But I mean, obviously, if you're coming, we just did the Spanish tasting, and there's a lot of Grenache, as it's known in Spain. I mean, there are some beautiful Grenaches, but there are so many that are just quite simple. This is not simple at all. It's a really, really fun wine.
Grenache is for all the grapes out there that we hear a lot about: Shiraz, Malbec, Pinot Noir, Merlot, Cabernet. Grenache goes a little bit under the radar for a grape that makes wine, a decent wine, across all spectrums. And we can say simple, and we can say cheap.
Yep.
But there's some really good value Grenache, especially Spanish Grenache from Navarra, where it's kind of like machine harvested. Yeah. Open it, drink it, get on with it. It's not you're going to write 20 pages of tasting notes about it, but for 8-10 quid, it does a really good job.
Yeah.
And then there's some phenomenal single vineyard, whatever you want to call it, at 50-60 quid a bottle that goes, that is not, and everywhere in between. Grenache is such a great grape to make solid wine at every level that you want to make it.
Yeah.
But still flies a little, it's getting more expensive in Australia, but Spanish Grenache, it's so far below anything like Tempranillo or Graciano or Cab. I know it's a blending grape. It's seen as a blending grape in Rioja. It's not. Look at our Rioja Grenache. It's
overtaken Shiraz as in Australian consumption now. So that's really crazy statistic, but it was definitely one that everyone's excited by. So now we've got to try your one. Okay, what can you tell us about? I'll move the tasting notes on. What can you say about this one? And what's this going to be?
It's Grenache, isn't it?
Steve Pinnell. We've done some of his wines before.
We have. I think in Australia. So he makes, once again, he does a lot of experimentally things.
That's different.
He makes Touriga. He does a Touriga Nacional Tempranillo blend, which is really, really cool. So here we are down in McLaren Vale, and I love McLaren. It's got some cool wineries, lots of fun stuff. Darenberg's down there, Angrove's down there, Wirra's down there. So you're getting down close to the coast. So depending where you are in McLaren, you can do lots of different things. There's a lot of white Rhone stuff being grown there. There's some sparkling being done down there. There's some big reds. There's some lighter reds. So McLaren is kind of a playground to do what the hell you want, which is kind of fun, and it's beautiful. So cool wineries, cool winemakers. I think what's kind of important, let's talk about these two Grenaches being different. I know they're from slightly different places. But what I find really cool about Australia and Australian winemaking and Australian wineries, okay? If I went into this winery, the Killicanoon, and I had this, and I go, hey, mate, I really like your Grenache, but what I really like is something a bit more powerful.
Yeah.
He wouldn't go, "Ooh, you don't know anything about Grenache," like you might get in Europe. He'd
Yeah.
go see my mate Steve. He makes a bigger,
Yeah.
richer style of Grenache. That might be your kind of thing. Or vice versa. Pick that, oh, that's a bit heavy for me. Go and see the other one. And I experienced that with they just want you to have a good time and drink the glass of wine that you want to have.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was at a wine lunch and they opened up this bottle of 1988 Chardonnay. And the guy was like, "I know you guys have been in Australia for a week, so, you know, we've got a cellar full of French stuff and Spanish stuff if you're bored of Australia." I'm like, absolutely not. But I think that's what's really kind of cool is there seems to be such a great winemaking community, and especially as regions are trying to get themselves on the map as a region. I think in Europe, a lot of it is it's my winery, my way, this, and I'm better than anybody else.
Yes.
And that might be a horribly big blanket statement, but that's kind of my
certainly in the very
feeling
prestigious regions, I think
there.
you'll find a lot of that.
Whereas I found when I was in Australia, it's very much, and it might because I was on a wine tour with, you know, wine people, but it was very, we just want to showcase what we do and what our friends do. And,
Yeah.
you know, we finish at the winery and we'll go and have a beer together anyway. So we're all mates. Let's see what the other person's doing. And I really like that. So we're back to this wine. This is Smart Vineyard.
Smart Vineyard.
So you would say it might be that
what makes it a smart Grenache? Does it have AI built into it?
It's the
Is it gonna? Is it?
It's the smart choice when you come for the vote.
Okay, Steve. I'm supposed to get some lamb to have with this and put it on the barbecue. Okay, that makes sense.
That idea.
Yeah, that's got Alexa built into it.
But what can we say about this? So this is from God. You are really putting me off today. This is not working well.
I'm trying my best.
So we're at Clarendon, which is the highest point in McLaren Vale for Grenache. And what's interesting is I think we think about Australia as being new world and therefore new and therefore hasn't been around for very long. But when you look at the soils in McLaren Vale, you're 700, 800 million years old. You've got some of the oldest seabed, schisty, gravel, blended soils on the planet.
Yep.
That these grapes have to work really, really hard to strive to get the nutrients and put.
There's not always ample water around, is there? No. So irrigation and management of all of these things is a great way of trying to keep the plant in check, because if a plant like a grapevine has everything that it needs, it will grow like absolute crazy and it will make as much fruit as it can, because that's its aim in life.
Unless you had 65-year-old bush vines.
Unless you have 65-year-old bush vines that are in quite an arid environment.
That you have to go and hand pick the grapes out when they're ready.
Yes, indeed. And Grenache works really well on bush vines training. So there's lots of different ways to train vines, but we're used to these vineyards, I think, particularly in sort of England and France, where everything's on big trellises and almost like hedges going along and along. And if you go into sort of the warmer regions of Spain, you see them, grapes quite close to the ground on these little tiny bushes, and they're trying to shade the grapes with as much foliage while not having too much foliage to not put too much sugar in the grapes as well. So it's a real balancing act. Does
anyone put wet dog for my tasting notes? Or am I going to survive?
Oh, I've missed a question.
Oh.
So, is Wine 5 completely Grenache? To the best of our knowledge, it is. We haven't seen anything else. You never know for sure, but
yeah, the label is Grenache. But you know, there is the option of 15%.
Normally people will put in if there's more than like 1% of something.
Yeah. I would be surprised, because Steve's other wines, when he puts Touriga in or he puts that, it's labeled as a blend. So if it had something else in, I would be surprised, but I don't want to be quoted on that.
Touriga Nacional, isn't he? Yeah, that's what I said. That's what he said. Sorry, I was clearly concentrating on something else at the time. Kevin confirming, yes, winemakers all meeting up for a beer. It's nice. You see, it's in other wine regions that the English winemakers have been traditionally
another great story about having a beer at the end of the day. You had to you finish the day, a hard day of wine tasting, you have to finish with a cleansing ale. It's very important in Australia.
Cleansing ale.
So if you wake up in the morning with a hangover, it was that damn beer.
I see.
Nothing to do with the 48 wines you've tasted that day. It's that one beer is what put you over the edge.
But that's a richer, classy. It's almost like that's a kind of Burgundy versus a sort of I don't know, a Chateauneuf sort of like just in terms of that
Beaujolais.
level
No,
up in terms of the
same thing.
intensity. Beaujolais is not the same thing. It's about to make me go. But let's have another look at those things there. I've not had a Grenache that tastes like this. I'm getting a very strong menthol note in this. And
It's right there.
someone's, minty, that minty
You got
menthol
mint, you got
note.
sage, Vegemite. It's not even a word.
The Australian classic. Let's talk
It's
about
weird.
that menthol.
This feels
aspect.
more burgundy-ish. This feels more Rhony,
Yeah,
which is
that
even though
does.
that's not a burgundy grape.
Exactly. Yeah. It's in very much in that style, and stylistically they're so different.
I'm going to get
It's
hounded.
crazy.
Jamie Smith Sommelier says that this Grenache tastes like it's from Burgundy. What do you know?
I'll forgive you that. No, I wouldn't forgive you saying that the Gamay does, but I think so. The interesting thing about menthol, obviously, you get these big eucalyptus, the gum trees that are often all around the vineyards,
Full of kookaburras.
full of probably. Don't you dare start making a kookaburra noise to me. And these are immense pumps. They draw vast amounts of water out of the ground that goes out into the leaves. This transpiration process, and it takes out an awful lot of the gum itself, and that spreads itself all over the vineyard. And so when you're getting that, there's not some magical link between the roots or anything on this occasion. We're not going to talk about that. This is, it goes in the air and it lands on the grapes.
It just goes up. It's like big, like
absolutely. You smell it. It's
when you go to a water park and
smell.
there's like showers, just,
Yeah,
that it's just eucalyptus.
So I think that's probably why you're getting a bit of that minty character coming into that, and I think we'll get a lot more of that in wine number 6. Which I'm really looking forward to.
So should we let the people vote? Let's let the people vote.
Let's do that. When Egypt won Israel's land.
So did we clarify that you picked the
Let
Killer
my
Canoe and I picked the
people
Steve
vote.
panel? Yes. we did. It says there now anyway.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to hide that somehow. Why have they made it so difficult to do that? Right. Okay. So, but 2 good wines, 1 good wine, 1 not so good, or you just don't like Grenache. Interested to hear any thoughts that you've got in it. But
or you care about my feelings. That has got nothing to do with this anymore. Nothing to do with this anymore.
Oh dear. So we've done McLaren Vale, we've done Clare Valley, we've done Eden Valley, we have done Hunter Valley when we've done your Turkey Flat, which was Barossa. So where are we going for the last one? Coonawarra.
To the Terra Rossa soil.
Terra Rossa soil. Now, who knows what Terra Rossa soil looks like? Well, you'll probably guess it's probably from the word Rossa.
It looks like roses.
Red.
Oh.
Yeah, quite red. It almost looks like terracotta, doesn't it? It's crazy. But what an astonishing color of soil from the rich iron content in it, and in it. Sorry, we've gone completely barking mad today. I don't know why. It's been a long week. He's going off somewhere on an aeroplane.
No,
you
can't.
Not. You could be going to
one
of those places on an aeroplane.
What? Milton Keynes. Yeah, short haul from Luton.
Hard to go back to wine 4 after wine 5 because obviously 5 is so much stronger.
Right. Do you want to tell the story of this wine and why this wine is in the glass, or do you want me to tell it?
I mean, it's quite a nice, easy story, isn't it?
Well, I know. That's why I'm letting you have it.
Right. So we wanted to pick the best wine for that we could sort of, and we're not very good businessmen, quite clearly, and many times because we really shouldn't have put this in, but we did. We wanted to find the best Australian wine that we could in the tasting that was under £50. Now
that we agreed on.
That we agreed on, and there were wineries there like Penfolds who are showing off some of their super expensive stuff. So there's plenty of stuff that's more expensive. I don't think they were necessarily any better than this.
We tasted 160 quid Chardonnay, didn't we?
Oh yeah. It was very good, but again, was it £160 versus no? But we undernard between 2 from this same producer who just seemed to have an absolutely wonderful array of really high quality wines at this sort of price point. But the one that we the one we came down to as being the most distinctive and the most interesting was this one, because it is the Coonawarra region, which has these crazy soils, and it's a Cabernet Sauvignon, isn't it? So we are very
Yes.
firmly into this sort of
Cabernet Sauvignon, bit of age on it.
Yeah.
We were able to get hold of some of the 2016
2016
vintage.
Oh gosh,
And
hard job.
when if you talk about, oh, do you want to put?
Oh,
can,
I should
you can
bring
pop
that back
you can
up
pop
now.
that up quickly.
Oh, crikey! No, I think that's fair. That's deserved. So pretty much a reversal of the other one, but yes, well done. That was a very good Grenache. Well done.
I like the
Well,
fact that
tasting notes on.
15% of people almost are tied. That
Yeah,
it
well,
keeps
but
everybody
they're both
happy.
really good wines. So okay, so your number, the Menzies.
Yeah, so we're Coonawarra on this terrace strip, and it's
that turns it
well,
up like
yeah,
20,
well,
doesn't it?
when you turn around and
Wow.
go, this is it. This wine is used quite a lot in blind tastings at diploma level, IMW level, that kind of stuff, because it is very, very
Mhm.
distinctive. It's of a ilk, it's of a style, it's of, for me, Coonawarra Cab and Crozes Hermitage would be the wines that I would love to have put in front of me in a blind tasting.
I've
Because
not had
it's
enough
just
crows to. I know I've got a bit of a runny nose. I've been around lots of places and things and lots of people recently, and I picked up a runny nose. But you don't notice it on a blocked nose with this. It's got this hit of menthol that's just clearing your sinuses. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
absolutely stop. It's big, it's bold, it's rich. It's from this tiny little area. I say tiny little area, it's still quite big compared to like single vineyard sites in Burgundy. But it creates this really, really rich style, this iron rich soil. It's a beautiful place, and it just makes really good wine. And I could sit and talk about it for hours, but I can't. This is one of those wines that's always the invitation. You just want to sit and enjoy and see other people's tasting notes come in before I try and tell them what they're meant to taste. But
Dear God,
we did a wine from Coonawarra a few years ago with Bob Burton.
That was Bob Burton. That was excellent as well.
Absolutely. So,
one of my favourites of his.
And I was doing the interview with him, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning with him, and I'd met him a couple of times previous, and it ended up more into having a few beers than it was actually doing an interview. Editing that interview was quite tough because
yes,
there was a lot of rub. Like we talked for like 2.5 hours, and I had to cut that down to like 10 minutes for the show.
And he had harvest after.
Yeah, he was then. We did a bottle of wine, and he's going to go and do harvest in his tractor.
Dear God.
But
hope he wasn't driving.
But it was one of the best questions I've ever asked, outside of Alex asking Mr. Duval about drop bears in the vineyard.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
But I turned around. It's like, oh, so this Terra Rossa soil. What is really special in Australia about this Terra Rossa soil? What makes it make the wine as it is? And Bob's made wine for years out there. He's a big winemaker. He does really cool stuff.
He actually bought the Penfolds old winery because he outgrew his one. So when they outgrew theirs, he bought the Penfolds winery, which is, in his mind, he's still a small producer, but you don't buy the
1.4 million cases a year, I think. But so I was expecting a really deep and meaningful answer about, the heritage, the depth of the soil, the iron content. And his response was, maybe it's the way the seagulls poop.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm like not to take it too literally. That what he was absolutely saying was like, we've looked into this, we've looked into that, we don't know, we just don't know, but it's magic, and it's a magic place. And I think his big argument was that his vines weren't growing on the Terra Rossa soil; they were just at the edge of it. So who knows? This is definitely growing on it. So this is on the red sandy iron-rich loam over that limestone deep underneath, and it creates just such a banging wine.
So there's a question on there: how long will this age for? Well, we look at is 2016, so we're at 9 years already, and this, like, I think you could age it the same way as like a great California cab. You could do, to be fair, as long as you want to, and it comes down to it's still got nice fruit. It's going to start losing some of the fruit and get more tertiary as you go any older than this. But if you like a wine when it becomes really leathery and tobacco-y and the fruit becomes a little bit more dried and earthy, you could hold this for another 20 years. Easy peasy.
That is very special, isn't it? Wow. Wow. Let's have a look at the tasting notes. I
All
can
of
see
the
a lot
notes.
of words in here.
No wet dogs. But there
Menthol,
is a badger.
Earthy
Yeah,
cigar box,
anise,
forest
that licorice, metallic, medicinal.
Do you know what's really
But-
scary about this is that this wine comes from vines that were planted in 1975. And I sat there, I was going, wow, so they're like, nearly 35, 40 years old. And it's like, no, they're 50 years old. 50. 1975 was apparently 50 years ago. That's really scary. But that's probably a sign that I'm getting old, and so probably why I enjoy wines like this, because it's all a bit Bordeaux.
Very close to birth year wines for you now, isn't
Yeah, it is. Stop it.
it? Yeah, birth year, not birth year wines, birth year vines.
Planting year vines.
Maybe that's what we should start drinking. It's cheaper than drinking birth year wines. We'll drink birth year vines.
Oh, I like that.
Let's do that.
But we've got plenty of fruit. We've got plenty of the things like coffee and chocolate, which come from the toast and the barrels there. Rusted iron, again, hopefully from that soil rather than the barrel rusting or something.
Yeah,
medicinal note, definitely.
So that note from Kevin about the cigar. So the cigar is their other Coonawarra
That was the
cab.
other one, yeah.
So that's their other Coonawarra cab. Slightly younger vines. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. So the cigar is a step before this. So absolutely beautiful, but not quite as rich, not quite as decadent as this. They also make a great wine called the Signature.
The Signature was the other one we thought about doing, really, wasn't it? Yeah. But yeah, they are a fantastic producer. And so if there's any of those that you know that you love and you'd like us to get in, we'll probably be buying some more.
So if there's anything that you like from Yalumba, give me a shout because I can get hold of it. We have access to their entire portfolio. And I think that's something to say. We have what we have from the tastings, but obviously we're buying from these wineries, from these importers.
Yeah.
So if you go, oh, I really like that. So we're doing a tasting kit for WSET, and they wanted a Viognier in there. So I've got some of the Yalumba Viognier in the warehouse. It's not on the website because we're using it for that project. But there's
Geigel.
Exactly. But if there's anything like that you want and you want me to grab a case, pop me an email. I can get you a price for it and we get it organised. So
absolutely, we are here for all of your winey needs. Now, food pairings. Calling Finn. What would you like to have with this? Now Jamie's gone for a ribeye steak or a porcini risotto, a classic choice there. A beef stroganoff
or a
mushroom dishes.
risotto.
Yeah, definitely. There we go.
See?
Mushroom. It's got that earthiness to go really nicely with those sort of things. Could we have it with some like Italian sort of tartufo kind of coated, like those big?
You need something with a lot of power. This is big and oomph and. Yeah, the Viognier, especially their one from the Samuels from Eden is lovely. It's about 20 quid-ish a bottle. There's some really good stuff. I think Australia doesn't get enough love. The tasting I was at last week, I got to drink Vas Felix back to 1989 and just absolutely stupid wines.
So. And what's really sad is that the wine industry is having a hard time with it at the moment because, for so many reasons. The biggest one was that they were selling tons and tons into China. And, Chinese companies were building out these amazing wine cellars. There was this whole kind of, this culture of gifting, of generosity. And there's been a big government clampdown on it. And then there was a trade war, a clampdown on this this over-generous gifting side of things, which is bordering on bribery, should we say. But very good for the Australian wine industry.
We don't mind over generous gifts.
No. And,
just saying.
And they've now opened up they've reduced the tariffs again, so wine is flowing back in. But in general, wine consumption, wine purchasing in China has plummeted in the last few years. So that's really, really been very hard work for the Australian industry. So I think it's just wonderful to get the opportunity to do this deep dive into Australian wines and just go, wow, what a range of quality.
Yeah, and there's absolutely the everyday drinking, cheap and cheerful Australian wines, but
that's what they're meant to do.
It goes all the way. There's everything. So
what you got there?
Was that you leading to a promo? Cool. Right. Who loves a promo?
Let's just pull out a bottle of wine.
Right. So, hey, I like to give back to the community.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I do like to give back to the community. So we had the turkey flap earlier, which is how you say wet dog or whatever you people are talking. However, they got hold of some of this. You can't see very well because the camera's awful. But
shall I bring it to the closer camera?
No, you break it. Oh,
Look at that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? There you go. Pedro Ximénez, the classic Australian grape. Again,
exactly. So
to go with the Grenache.
PX, very, very, very sweet sherry grape. And this is an 18% sherry style wine made in the Barossa Valley by Turkey Flats.
Naturally.
I managed to get hold of 3 bottles of this. Well, 4, but one's for me. So what I'm going to do is chuck a promo out to anyone who wants to buy absolutely anything from the website, whether it's this tasting, a previous tasting, a future tasting, whatever. If you spend 200 quid total and put the code TURKEY, yes, exactly, easy as that.
Turkey.
Put the code TURKEY in. I'll send you one of these free of charge.
You're a turkey. While stocks last.
Yes, I've got 3 of them.
Yes, just to be clear. But
ready, steady, go.
Yeah, no, that's I'm sure they'll be really very tasty indeed.
Exactly, and if no one buy up,
I wouldn't know necessarily what to expect from Pedro Ximénez. From
it's one of these wines that you're not sure if you should drink it or you should pour it on your ice cream. It's
that
phenomenal.
Okay. Those are nice as a little treat. Yeah, a very pretty bottle as well. Very pretty bottle.
So,
should we have a last look at the tasting notes?
Then? Yeah, last look at the tasting notes, and while we do that, just say we are not having a wine of the night vote tonight because we had the little votes throughout. And because they're so different and so jumping up between values, I felt, I might be very wrong having not done this, but I felt it wasn't fair to compare the other wines for what your favourite was compared to the Menzies of the last one.
Yeah, that is fair because that is obviously an absolute killer wine. So shall we show people the prices?
We could do the prices first and then we can do the quiz.
The quiz. So we've got some wines that are absolutely stunning value. I think that Verdelho.
Stop telling it. It's got absolute value. We haven't got any.
Oh, well, it would be great.
It will be.
Why have you put the price there? You should put sold out. Okay, if we get some more in, it will be £16.
We will get some more in.
But I think for me, actually, the standout wine value for money is your Turkey Flat White Blend because the Chardonnay is wonderful, but it is a bit more than your one. So it should have won, really.
Nearly double.
In the same way that your Grenache is a bit pricier than mine. So, we kind of spend our budget in different ways, didn't we?
Yeah, we spent it all on wine 6. That's how
we spent all the budget on wine 6, that is true. But, I mean, £49, imagine how much, like, a Napa wine of that quality would cost. £49 for, like, Californian Cabernet now.
You get a bag average standard.
Level. Like it's ridiculous for like the Napa sort of region. We go up in some of the more distant regions, then but for that quality, that aging potential, that interest, that uniqueness, we were just so glad we had the chance to show it to you. So we have a few bottles of that, but not too many of them for obvious reasons.
Because there's not much left.
Not much left, and it's a bit pricey. But great taste notes. Well done on everything. If you had a different favourite of the night to the wine 6, why don't you pop your favourites into the chat? That would be a great thing to do. But I think Mr. Smith has a quiz. Well, is that what
I had a quiz and then you added into it. But let's see.
So
let's give everyone while people join the quiz.
So if you haven't done the tasting notes, don't worry, you can join the quiz. Now, if you haven't done one of these quizzes before, there is a prize.
There is a prize. The prize is you can give a friend or family or someone that you think would enjoy
or dislike
would enjoy a wet dog tasting Viognier blend a free tasting for next month. So if you win, it's down to you to give me a shout and let me know you're in. Can we do the QR code? I'm going to talk about next month at the same time as well.
Yeah, okay.
So next month we are doing we're doing cheese and wine pairing. So there'll be 6 wines coming out to you. However, what we have done is, that we send you the wines. I have created a curated cheese box, which will be 3 cheeses, some crackers. I have designed with a local chutney company, our very own wine-based chutney in there. So we will be shipping these out as well for anyone who wants to have exactly the same cheeses as us. If you got
the small batch handmade chutney from our wines is I think that's going to be
kind of fun
on its own. These are all from fine cheese, they're great stuff. So.
But if you don't want to do that, That's absolutely fine. If you have a look at it, you can see the cheeses we're getting, and then you can grab something similar
Quite
for
right
yourself.
Quite right too. And if not, just ask for any advice, and we're always happy to give it to you. So that is the QR code. So I'm going to hide that, let's go on to the quiz. Thank you all for joining us on that. And
Ian Wareham looks like he's in. Winner of last month.
He's ready. He's ready. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Oh, actually, no, not before I go 3, 2, 1. You do get bonus points for being fast as well as accurate, but you get fewer bonus points.
You don't get any bonus points for being fast if you're wrong.
So be right, but be fast. 3, 2, 1, go. Which of these regions is furthest to the west? Margaret River, Yarra Valley, the Mornington Peninsula, or the Adelaide Hills?
A bit like the Pet Shop Boys. They went west. Life was peaceful there. Oh, come on, it's quiz time. Like everything's gone out the window now.
Goodness me. Okay. Well, I wonder what will get to the win. Let's have a look. Most people went for the Margaret River, a decent number for Adelaide Hills, but which is correct? It is Margaret River. Congratulations.
Just about 3 hours south of Perth.
Going to the next question now.
Well, you'll see who's top of the league first.
Oh, yes. It's Kevin in the lead. Good work there, Kevin. That was nice and fast. Okay. So for
that's Kevin with all the Australian information. I think he's got inside information.
Okay.
Okay, let's go.
What was the name of Penfolds Grange before it was called just Grange? Was it Grange Hermitage or Hermitage? Was it Grange Superior? Was it Grange Hill? Or was it Grange Reserve Shiraz? Good question. Good options.
I loved Hill there.
Grange Hill.
Yeah,
I think. I think we're giving it away that it might not.
Well, it might be. People
who knows?
I loved a bit of Grange Hill.
Yep. And
so Grange Hermitage, that changed in 1989. Hermitage, because that was the famous Shiraz producing region in Northern Rhone, and that's kind of when we talked about New World wines basing themselves off an Old World style. That was where Grange was, but 1989 they became their own, just Grangey Grange.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next question now. Ready?
We'll see who's top first.
Top. Still Kevin.
Oh, but hey, there's a lot to add to. It's all about a bit of speed here.
Which animal is found on the bottle of Yellowtail Shiraz from the wonderful Casella family brands? Is it a kangaroo, a wallaby, a wombat, or a koala?
It's not a drop bear.
It's not a drop bear. Oh, Jamie, giving it away there.
What? It wasn't an option. This might be a bit.
This is a tricky one, isn't it?
What do we got? So 71% have said kangaroo.
Oh no.
It's a wallaby.
It's
the yellow-footed rock wallaby.
You bunch of drunk guys. So that has changed things remarkably.
Quite dramatically.
And, James B is into the lead.
There's only a couple of people know their rock wallabies from their wombats.
I think I would have been fooled by that one, to be fair. Okay, so to the next question. Where is Jamie going this week? Well, in fact, this weekend. Is he going to
Saturday?
Italia. Is he going to the Gulf of America? Is he going to Chile?
I'm really excited for your Milton Keynes accent.
Or is he going to Milton Keynes? That sounds a bit more like Birmingham.
That was far too north.
A bit Birmingham, wasn't it? Right. But which one's he going to? Italy, Gulf of America, Chile, or Milton Keynes? Oh, we're separating people this time. The answer is that he needs to get a new jumper because
it's going
to be the middle of the summer, so not really.
I'm off to Chile and Uruguay for a few days for some wine tasting.
Yeah, that I'm not jealous at all. I will be here in Leighton Buzzard.
He's probably more likely to be. Oh, you'll be in Milton Keynes to do a bit.
I'll be in Milton Keynes, yeah.
To drop some pouches off.
Yeah, quite. Okay.
Chile.
So, James keeping the first place.
James is the only person who knows that I'm going to Chile. Even my wife's not in there.
That's impressive. Okay, she's probably answered something else out of like she's not going to let you go. All right,
Yeah.
next.
Little do I
question.
know I'm going to Milton Keynes.
Okay, what percentage of Australian wine bottles have a screw cap? Is it less than 50%? Is it 51% to 75%? Is it 76% to 90%? Or is it greater than 90%? 91 plus. I don't know. I think they should all be in little aluminium pouches, personally, but I might have a bit of a sort of a vested interest in that one. And the time is up.
Oh, so there's a blend. There's a 70s. So people knew it's a lot.
A lot. No one said less than 50%, which I think is
Smart moves.
Smart move. More than 90%.
So right now,
Yep.
98%
What?
of
Wow.
Australian wine is under screw cap.
We could talk about that. We're not going to. We'll keep on with the quiz. All right. Okay. So next question about the leaderboard first. Oh, there isn't a leaderboard. Okay. If you see this sign, of what should you be aware? Gremlins, koalas, drop bears, or drunken, angry natural winemakers? Is there any other kind of natural winemaker? Like, I don't know. Went to the natural wine show in London. That seemed a pretty accurate thing, and a lot of them were falling out of trees, looking remarkably like that. So it's entirely possible. Falling koalas.
Drop bears. No one thought there was a gremlin.
No gremlins. No Phoebe Cates around.
It is, in fact,
It is
drop
obviously the famous cousin of the koala, the drop bear. And just for those who are sort of watching on our screen at the moment, there was this helpful information poster that was put out by one of the Australian local governments in times of COVID, when they were telling you to maintain a physical distance of 1.5 meters between each other. They've described that as 3 koalas or 1 drop bear. But drop bears are more likely to attack those who didn't keep their distance in COVID times, because of course.
Well, that's why you need to be 3 times as far away.
That is indeed why. So next question. James in the leads. Everyone else all close? The famous Terra Rossa soil. Pay attention. Where do you find Terra Rossa? Is it Hunter Valley, Coonawarra, Barossa, or Tassie?
Or none of the
Or
above.
none of the above. But it's found in my glass right here.
Yeah, we've only said it 432 times this evening. Watch this. Earwear will get this wrong. So am I naming names?
Coonawarra. Lots of people listening. Excellent work. It is the correct answer. So I don't know if there's going to be a leaderboard. Let's see. There is. James still in the lead.
With 2 questions to go.
Okay. This is a bit of a curveball. What was the name of Des and Daphne's baby in Neighbours 1987?
Why did they have a baby in another year as well? This is the 1987
because,
baby.
as you know, being a massive Neighbours freak, Daphne tragically died, I think, the next year. So, Jamie, Alex, Badger, or Rolf? I hope it's not Rolf. I really hope it's not Rolf.
We're going to see what we got. There's across the board.
Oh, dearie me. No, it's not Rolf. It's not Rolf. It is, sadly, Jamie. Jamie. He did return to Neighbours a few years later, apparently. I don't watch it that much. Anyway, so what is our next month's tasting? Is it Chile and Uruguay, wines of France, wine and cheese, or South Africa? Whoa. What's going on? Sorry.
It's clicking too many buttons.
I clicked it too fast.
Oh, no. On the final question as well.
Final question. Oh, I mean, the fact that we've been talking about it again, probably we should have preempted this one, shouldn't we?
No, you've got to keep everybody happy. You know, we only said Terra Rossa soil 48 times. And people still put Tasmania.
Oh, look, everyone said wine and cheese pairing. They're correct. Well done. Bravo.
No, someone said Chile. Someone said Chile and Uruguay.
Oh, what? Matt S. taking it by 1 second at the last. Wow, that's very impressive. Well, Matt, drop us a line, get in touch with us, and
let us know where you want to go.
Who should get a complimentary tasting experience?
You want to do the final promo of the night?
No, you can do it.
Oh my word!
How do I get rid of this? Okay,
so
that's done now. So I can
is that done?
that.
Final promo. and then I'll leave you all to bed. It's been quite a salesy one today, hasn't it?
Dearie me.
However, we have made some decisions. For those of us who, and this could go a long way to getting your free bottle of turkey flat, couldn't it? So
It could actually, to be fair.
Advent calendar, they're back. They're a pre-order. We are not going around the world this year. We are just going in our living rooms. We are going to do the A to Z of wine, not the A to Z of grapes. So there's going to be some grapes, some regions, some winemaking techniques to
Some
have a
fun
lovely
things.
little alphabetical. What can we
Walk through the glossary.
What can we shoehorn under the letter M that's ridiculous? This.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it's going to be absolutely
Is what
delicious,
we're
and the
So-
fun. And we learned. Listen to what you guys fed back after the Advent calendar last year, and we got 2 bits of feedback back. One,
We've got good
they
news
loved-
and bad news.
that you all loved having the some of these cool experiences of getting to try the wines that you don't normally get to try. So that's definitely going to be in there. We're going to be keeping some of those cool things, like where we went last year through Lebanon and Georgia and whatnot, and having Janoon Indian wine. But but we also heard people who are just saying, look, it was just a little bit too small. Now, we've had this really big challenge that not technically, but we couldn't put, we weren't allowed to put 125 ml, a small glass, into our pouches, which is what we designed them for. And we had this reiterated to us by wine standards and food standards numerous times, until we asked the question a different way. And then they said, oh, is it all in a big thing? You're just buying the box, but you can't buy them individually. We said, yes. They go, oh, that's fine then. So it's fine. So we are putting in 25% more wine, 125 ml into each pouch.
So our price for this year is going up 25%.
Yeah.
Because of everything's
Parts
gone
of
up.
the duty and
But
the cost.
we are also giving you 25% more wine. So we're squared away.
Yeah.
But to try and get it moving along, we are doing an early bird offer so you can buy it at the same price as it was last year.
Yeah.
For 25% more wine.
Which I think is a bargain. And it's now even easier to get the boxes out, which again was another bit of feedback we've improved on from last year. So it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be great fun. And you can all join in or gift it to one of your friends or family. And
Or us.
or
I'll
us.
have one.
Well, I'll be safe with them by that time. Exactly. I didn't want to see an advent calendar again after last year. But anyway, but we've had a wonderful evening. And I hope that I hope you have too. I hope you felt we've explored some fun edge cases of Australian wine that you don't necessarily get to try every day. And we didn't just go to things, and we also didn't skip over anything too critical apart from Shiraz. But
No, but is there any final thoughts, comments, anything that we missed? It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, next month, wine and cheese. I will I'll pop an email out with what we're doing and links to the cheesy cheese things. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm going to Chile. What's really exciting about the Chile Uruguay tasting is all the wines are going to be from wineries that I'm going to. So it's going to be basically it's going to be holiday snaps. So it'll be very chilled out, very fun. But no, it's been a lot of fun tonight. It's always exciting to get the wines in, and we'll see you next month for wine and cheese.
So thank you all for joining us, and a wonderful good night to you all. See you soon. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.